Hello and thanks for joining us on this week's episode of New Dawn Nigeria, your weekend magazine program where we keep you updated on news and stories making the headlines all across Nigeria. My name is Chinonso Pam and I'm not doing this alone.
And of course, as usual, my name is Phillips Living, always at your service. Now, today's episode promised to be an interesting one. We have former House of Rep member who was the chairman committee on Army on standby,
yeah.
of which we'll be looking at state of the nation, of course, with him, and also we'll be looking at the newspaper headlines that has been on. That's from Monday, being the 18th day of September, till Friday. And of course, we'll be giving you all the juicy stories from a few newspapers. So today's episode promised to be an interesting one, so we have to do is sit back, relax, and of course enjoy every bit of it. Now, talking about the newspaper headlines, we'll be looking at that up next. Don't go nowhere. Well, it's good to know that you are still with us on New Dawn, that #1 breakfast show. Of course, that give you all the juicy stories that is happening in Nigeria, and of course beyond. Now, as I promised earlier, we'll be looking at the newspaper headlines. That's few from that's for every day. That's from Monday, Tuesday to Friday, and then we'll give you the update. Of course, if any of those interest or intrigue, drop by any vendor close, you get a copy. And of course, find out more about that story, or rather, it's the 21st century. It's just one click away from your phone. And now we'll start with the Punch newspaper for Monday, that's September 18th 2023, and the top story there for the Punch is marketers eye fresh fuel price hike as crude hits $94. And also the subheading there is natural plants price hike raises concern over federal government's insistence on 617 naira per litre petrol price. And also operators insist petrol subsidy returning gradually, and also NNPCL gets 3 new VPs. Get more of that particular story from the Guardian, from the Punch rather,
Yeah.
and also federal government Labour meets that's on Monday on post-subsidy talks. Well, that's for the Punch for today. Next is the Nigerian Tribune, and the top story there is companies may resort to downsizing. LCCI warns. The sub story is talking about wants government to remove tax on food items and also urges CBN to pause inflation rate hike. That also from the Nigerian Tribune, and Tinubu nominates Ibrahim Olawande as youth minister. That is before it used to be Ministry of Youth and Sports. Now there is the youth minister different, and
This one.
yes, and we have 150 houses destroyed in Plateau flood. And more of those stories from the Nigerian Tribune there. And moving forward, the This Day newspaper for Monday, of course, where we have Tinubu to ring Nasdaq closing bell as NGX partners US COSI and NIPC. That's for the This Day newspaper. And Adeleke aircraft's engines in a Vartet crash may have been tampered with. Subsidy NLC to honor federal government's invitation for talks but adamant on demands. Well, there are update, of course, for that story. Still as we unfold more stories from the newspapers. Now the Daily Trust is up next, still for Monday, 18th September 2023, where we have Auditor General absence stalls audit of MDAs for 3 years. Imagine, for this period of time there has only been an acting Auditor General when it's supposed to run only for 6 months. It's now running for 3 years. And of course that makes office poorly funded, that's since 1999, and the vacuum makes governance susceptible to mismanagement. That's according to Senate panel. According to that, and also Tinubu will appoint substantive Auditor General soon. He's coming from the presidency. And still on the flood matter, also on the Daily Trust, where we have flood destroys over 100 houses in Plateau. Now that's for Daily Trust, and the Tribune said 150, while Daily Trust is saying 100. Well, you can get more details of that from the Daily Trust. And also 2.34 trillion naira spent on debt servicing in 6 months. That's according to debt management there, DMO. And Tinubu appoints 2 ministers for youth's ministry. That's a subheading for the Daily Trust. Now we'll be having Vanguard up next, where we have outrage as RMAFC defends jumbo pay for NAS members, of course others. Subheading there is talking about is disheartening, unjustifiable, unacceptable according to NLC rather, and NECA. That story from the Vanguard for today. As also a subheading is impeachment move as senators disagree over plot to remove Akpabio. And 1.1 trillion naira Anchor's Borrowers Fund, bank chief risks arrest. We'll get more of those stories from the Vanguard. Next is the Guardian newspaper. Still for Monday, September 18, 2023. CBN top officials on a tightrope as special investigation peaks. We have Cardoso comes at a time when the Naira is weak and inflation pushes household further into poverty. We have Sarah sues Tinubu over state's life perk for Wike, and of course others. More of that from the Guardian newspaper for today. And UNGA 78, only 15% of SDGs targets are on track, says the United Nations. So that's a sub headline there. We have the Nation newspaper up next, which have dispute stalls federal government Emefiele plea bargain talks. Case of Emefiele is still lingering. I wonder when they will be done with the case, and the poor man will know his fate, whether he's going back home, which the probability is very low, or how long he's going to stay in the cell. So, well, that and much more from the Nation newspaper. Controversy over 480 million Paris Club refund lingers. And Umahi, we have inherited 6 trillion naira funding gap in 2,604 projects. That and much more from the Nation newspaper, and I think that's about the newspapers that we can take for Monday, being the 18th day of September 2023. Maybe help us with the one for Tuesday.
All right, moving on to newspaper headlines for Tuesday, Tuesday, September the 19th. It says Atiku and Obi appeals raise concern over Supreme Court cases. It says there that the panel of 7 will deplete number of justices to 4. That's news making the headlines. And one news that trended here says Obasanjo justifies public rebuke of the traditional leaders. That was some bit of an interesting story during the past week. You can find that in the Nation's newspaper. That's for the Nation newspaper. Now let's move along to the Guardian. The Guardian newspaper for Tuesday, the 19th of September. It says here that major headlines say Nigerians bear 1 trillion naira metering burden as CBN and World Bank backpedal. So this would fall on the shoulders of Nigerians. And another substory there says UNGA Tinubu addresses world leaders on Tuesday on illicit financial flows asset returns. You can find that story and get more of that information on the Guardian newspaper. And here's that story says 20 were fed, killed, 7 arrested in Shagamu Cold War. I think we later heard that some arrests were made on that cold case. Then we're moving on to This Day newspaper. On This Day newspaper, it says here the window story there: indefinite strike looms as NLC federal government talks end in deadlock. This talk, like we've been saying, has always been ending in deadlock.
Next they will come and say they are giving 14-day ultimatum.
Yes, after what happened after this ultimatum elapsed, and NLC and the trade union, if you have lost the war, just raise a white flag so that we just move on. And then it says that labor still demands 200% wage award, and the government worried over economic impact of another strike, because we don't need to go down further than we have gone already, looking at the impact that another strike is going to bring on. Say Adeyemo identifies 4 economic reform priorities for Nigeria. But this is the Wale Adeyemo who visited Nigeria, a Nigerian who visited Nigeria in the past week on economic matters, and he says he commends Tinubu's administration's bold steps. And he says unified FX rates is essential to attracting foreign investment, and declares reversing the policy will be worse. So we are here. There is no reversal on these policies if what he has stated is anything to go by. All right, that's for This Day newspaper. For Tribune newspaper, still on the 19th of September, same story. The strike: NLC meets federal government and says the ultimatum persist. Use the ultimatum, persist. And still subsist. Sorry, not persist, subsist. Yeah, and then it says 8 killed and 9 arrested by the police as residents claim over 20 were killed. This is still on the Shagamu court clash. It's a bit of security concern there. All right, that's for the Nigerian Tribune. Now moving on to the Punch. News making the headlines. NLC seems to trend it. On that day, the federal government, NLC meeting deadlock. Workers insist on their demands. Are we ever going to get to?
But the fact where they are looking for 200% increase, and the fuel increase, I think it's how many percent increase?
If we follow that, then they should be demanding for almost 400% increase in the minimum wage.
Then why is
I feel you now. I feel
so if they've tripled or doubled the price of fuel, and all of a sudden the need to double or to triple the amount for the minimum wage, they're having problems with it. It doesn't. There should be at least a balance in one way or the other, at least. Even if it means just, you understand, increasing the salary, at least it will, yes. The tense nature of the atmosphere at least will reduce.
And to show some bit of, you are actually concerned about the price. Our initial fear of, if the subsidy, if we are given this kind of minimum wage increments, how it will also affect inflation. But with the price, with the way the dollar and the price of petrol is going up now, it is. I think it is required, but let's see where that gets us. So let's move on to Vanguard newspaper. The story making the major headlines for Vanguard says Nigeria in revenue crisis with huge public debts. It says federal government is spending of 96% of revenue on debt servicing. So here it feels like we have to get more. We need to invest. Need to find ways to generate income internally. Again, people have made the argument that we need to do more on tax. Yes, I don't know if Nigerians want to hear that tax should be increased, or maybe what we would now have to do is to expand our tax collection.
One of the papers that I read, they were asking for tax to be removed or reduced from foodstuff, since already there are the issue or the amount of it is already high. So I think there are some things that should be considered. There are some that maybe it stays the way it is.
But we still have to pay tax nonetheless.
That's why I said
some, especially on food, food items. It will be important that tax is either removed or
reduced.
Yes, reduced. All right, so that's it for the Vanguard newspaper. We're still on the Vanguard. NLC to federal government. This is a warning here. You have till Friday to meet our demands. That was the warning as at Tuesday.
This is when those in charge of audio should play this gangan.
Yeah, you know when you say that you have till Friday to meet our demands. Yes,
but again, I know the federal government are aware of how the labor now operates. So they can only.
Let's not say that on national TV. All right, still Vanguard newspaper. One of the window stories there says drama in Benin. Remember that was trending in the past week. Say Edo deputy governor was locked out of his office. He was locked out of his office, and it was alleged or thing because there's no other person in the higher authority in the state.
Yes,
it definitely.
Well, subsequently, there is
the story unfolds
where he
has made an apology.
Yes, but still, regardless, I feel it was uncalled for, locking the governor out, and the deputy governor rather out of office, and him making that call that he made that was aired. Somehow portrays the person who has the power to lock that place in a bad, you understand, bad manner, because for you to come out and it was aired on national television and you're complaining that your office, if you with the supreme authority would be locked out, he's a common man. He's a common man.
Yeah.
So it's
without information. I mean, like you're saying, I didn't feel that was not a civil act to have done in that way. Just lock him out. It wasn't civil. And you say, so what now happens to be?
We know of his aides that were fired.
Yeah.
And so the drama, and ever since the governor came back from his medical leave and all that, it has been one issue or the other. Now it's good that you of course give respect to whom is necessary, because there were cases of allegations that the deputy governor was trying to take over power when he actually
well, that just, and you know, these stories are similar now, because it is the same thing that is happening in, this is on Doda, the same thing that is happening in Edo State, because there's a governor deputy issue, and this is all people looking for power. Anyway, being blamed on being overly ambitious, but we just hope they resolve that amicably. All right, let's move on to Daily Trust. Their story making the major headlines say NNPCL 12 others failed to remit 9.8 in 1 year. This is from the Nati. They said the NNPCL accused over misappropriation of 55 million NLNG dividend. The National Assembly must recover the funds. They said they are for transparency and accountability. This is Kiari, so means they are open for finding out why this has been so. It says subsidy, federal government NLC meeting deadlock. Every major newspaper has carried that news. This is also one of the window stories, and on appointment said, you are favoring Yoruba Christians, Murik Knox president. All right, I think that's all we have for Tuesday the 19th of September.
Okay, let's get the one for Wednesday. That's the 20th day of September 2023, and in no particular order, I will start with the Vanguard newspaper. And it has a presidential poll. FCT can't be 37th state. That's Atiku Obi tells Supreme Court. FCT can't be 37th state. Says 25% in FCT mandatory, and asks Apex Court to nullify Tinubu's victory, assist PPC judgment, perverse miscarriage of justice. That's according to. And also INEC didn't transmit results electronically. We are at Supreme Court, that's according to Labour Party there. And we have pictures of of Tinubu governors at Onga in New York. There we also have a picture of protest in Abeokuta over Mohbad's death. Now we know Nigerians, we usually find, or we're looking for avenue where at least we'll shy away from our trouble just for the moment. Now this Mohbad case came through where there's need to look into it. Now imagine having protests all over the country just for just to look into the death of this singer that died. The thing is, okay, the police said, okay, we will look into it. In fact, we're looking into it. Then that has been understood. I wonder why or how they are still protesting over it. You understand?
I think it's because they are used to the fact that the police will say they will do this, and they know that at the end of the day they don't still get justice. Maybe that's why I think we're insisting on making it clear that on this one we'll get to the end of the matter. that's why they are still let's drive the point home. We will get to the end of this matter.
Now
we'll be on this
there
street.
has been set date when this the protest was, or
the candle night,
yes, will start
candle,
and end. Now it started, it ended, but they refused to go home. You understand? Me, I just felt Nigerians, we usually find, okay, we need a reason to at least go out, stay out, you understand? And
so you guys feel that like most of the people that came out, they didn't come out for the right reasons. Since we are done, then let's go home now.
There's one video that I watched that somebody just randomly stopped someone and said, why are you guys wearing black? What's happening? The guy was like, Omo, it's my brother that he just killed. Just like that too. He went and worked for his Oga, Naira Marley, and Naira Marley just killed him because he said he wanted his pay. And Naira Marley refused to give it. So some people are just there just because maybe they liked one of in some cases also, I want to believe most of the people that are there were not listening to his songs before.
Yeah.
They just needed a reason to go out, you understand? And
we take on any opportunity we have.
Well, there's that picture on Vanguard, that's for Wednesday, and also we have Labour raises alarm over fresh moves to sell Unity schools. And also Nigeria won't allow AU fail to secure continent. That's according to Tinubu. You will find more of those stories from the Vanguard for Wednesday. And moving forward, the Guardian. Tinubu seeks better deal to end extremism, Africa's exploitation. Talking about his speech, it's you know when Tinubu was campaigning, people had issues with the way he delivers his message. Now some people were expecting if he becomes the president, him addressing the nation, definitely it would be entertaining. But he just shocked everybody with his speech and all that. It's at least
he delivered on that particular speech.
Commendable.
Yes, he did.
Still on the Guardian, angry Oyo APC members pelt Ganduje entourage with sachet water.
Oh wow.
All right. Family demands incident report repatriation of passenger that died abroad Egypt Air. Remember that story of a lady that was going to London that just died and the family wasn't contacted and all that. That's for the Guardian for Wednesday, being September 20th, 2023. Now moving forward, this day newspaper. Still for Wednesday, a Supreme Court article list 35 will be 51 grounds to nullify Tinubu's election. They're still forging ahead, if you ask me. Now, Dangote 650,000 barrels per day refinery to begin operations in October. October is just here. We pray they don't give any more.
We pray they don't give any more. We actually pray that we don't see the refinery still waiting to start giving us diesel in January.
Because I remember when the former president here commissioned it, we said here it's ready, good to know, start getting, but anyway, still on that, production to start with diesel and of course jet fuel, and also says NNPC does not have needed crude immediately. The petrol refining to commence on November 30th. Company to buy feedstock in dollars. More of that from the This Day. And Tinubu to world leaders at UN. Africa does not need pity, won't replace old shackles with new ones.
Yeah.
We're talking about neo-colonialism. Well, that and much more from the This Day newspaper. Up next is the Daily Trust. And Daily Trust still for Wednesday. Again, gunmen ambush security operatives, burn cops in Imo. Sub-story there says 8 soldiers, police, civil defense among victims. Police launch manhunt, panic grips residents. The governor charges security agencies on that. You can find detail of that story from the Daily Trust. Atiku Obi challenged Tinubu's victory at Supreme Court files 85 appeal grounds. And also, Mobad protest in Lagos Ogun Delta. Sanwo-Olu invites DSS, the Lagos State Government here. Now, summons, arrests, threats by National Assembly can scare investors away. That's from organized private sector. And at Onga, Tinubu says unfair treatment from abroad hindering Africa's progress. He has spoken widely for the African continent,
yep.
And it's really commendable. One might be waiting that he will talk more on Nigeria.
He spoke for Africa. He
Yes.
spoke as a giant of Africa. It was like he's placing us back in the global face and in Africa too as the giant of Africa.
Yes. And for the final paper for Wednesday, the Nigerian Tribune, which sub-story there says Atiku will be filed 86 grounds of appeal at Supreme Court. Want Apex Courts to nullify Tinubu's victory at the PPC. You'll find that for, I think, page 16 of the Nigerian Tribune. And sub-headline there at Onga, Tinubu says governance failure, foreign exploitation, others overburden Africa. Also, most Nigerian politicians are destiny destroyers, not helpers. That's from Bishop Fapi there. And diesel ex-depot price hits 1,000 naira per litre as oil marketers lament incessant increase. National grid collapse again 5 days after restoration. The other time we were commenting them for how many days?
400
days. I'll tell you now.
400 days. Prior to what we used to have where the grid was, they're putting in, it's not enough, but at least they try. But now this is beginning to get us to a little bit of a panic mood if we have seen another collapse.
And you know the power generation has reduced. So if it has,
drastically.
If it has reduced and there's still, had it been it has increased and there's,
we'll now know that it is because of that is,
but
yeah.
In such situation, you can just, this is when you be like, what is happening? You understand? What is happening? What is actually?
There's a lot. Oh my God.
Alright, for the kinship, passenger attack, silence, not act of cowardice. That's from the Oyo Obas there. Talking about the Kingmakers Dangote refinery to begin diesel jet fuel production in October. Well, that is for the newspaper headlines. That's for Wednesday. Maybe help us with one for Thursday.
All right. Like newspaper headlines, Thursday, Tribune. And the first story we have for that day is my trusted partner in every venture at 63. Now the First Lady Senator Remi Tinubu turned 63 and she got that wonderful, is it remark now, what would they call it? From her husband, the president of Nigeria. And here on we don't have time to read that personal message, but we're also saying a belated happy birthday to the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. All right, let's move on to the Punch. The Punch story is making the headline, says APC tackles Atiku as the US court grants VP's requests. I say,
Ex-VP.
sorry?
as the UK court grants
Ex-VP's request. Sorry, I beg your pardon. APC tackles Atiku as US court grants ex-VP's request. So we know that Atiku, they have been requesting for the president's certificate for the president's result from the university in Chicago, and under it says PDP Atiku's aide commend US court says Tinubu's academic record will be unveiled soon. There's a follow-up story to that. Say no cause for alarm. Atiku's case an exercise in futility. The president has nothing to hide. This is a statement from the APC. And said Lagos road collapses after downpour. Residents groan.
If you see that picture, you just
wow. This is not erosion. This looks like the road was yanked off. Wow, sad. Alright, it says again that the police declared 24 hours curfew as tribunal sacks Kano governor. That was another big story on Thursday. A lot has happened in Kano. We know how it has been for the governor when he came into power and now having to be sacked. But we're happy that it was not a party issue, but this is a court order. So, and it has to be, what I know there will still be more that will unfold from that story. So the Ondo Assembly begins process to impeach the deputy governor. You can find more of that story on the Punch newspaper.
They were not trying to impeach him.
Yeah, begins process to impeach, and the court is trying to tell us that we should not use the word impeach when it comes to the case, since there isn't a case of it's not a security case, it's not this, but maybe on other legal terms they are seeking an impeachment. So we should say the Ondo Assembly begins process to remove the deputy governor. Nonetheless, we have that exactly. Nonetheless, the end the end will justify the means. All right, so Naira tumbles to 980 naira to the dollar. FX shortage worsens. This is from the Punch on Thursday. We'll see how far that will go on as the news keeps unfolding. All right, moving on to Vanguard newspaper. Major story there says pressure on petrol, diesel prices as crude hits $97.19 to a barrel. There's a lot that we are combating with the prices of petrol. The crude oil prices, the dollar exchange rate, we are getting it hot back to back here in Nigeria. Well,
another angle to look at it is that the fact that it's affecting us here in Nigeria also means that it's affecting other nations. But the thing is, there is that aspect where we should look at the fact that those other nations are finding ways out for their citizens. And of course, to look at the petrol subsidy and all that, we'll be having a guest, former House of Representative, who will be telling us from the government angle about all these subsidy and what they have in store for Nigeria as a whole.
Yeah. All right, so still on the Vanguard newspaper, on the Mohbad story that we have been following, celebrities, youth, fans storm Lagos Osun Delta as protests enter day 2. Just saying, we hope that they are on the streets protesting and they know why they are protesting and not just joining the wagon to protest.
Well, since there's need for the police to use tear gas to disperse them, I feel they are going past their boundaries. Yeah. All right, that's all for the Vanguard newspaper, and let's move on to the Daily Trust. Major story there: Kano Tribunal sacks Governor Yusuf. He declares Gawanu winner. That's Daily Trust. There was a lot of agitation in Kano on this day.
For no reason, people were running and pampering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's you know the widespread celebration that rocked Kano when they declared Abba Gida Gida as the the winner during the election. Now imagine, and there was this conversion of other political members converting to NNPP. Imagine now this turn of event.
Yeah.
It's really
it's going to cause a lot of shaking, even in inter-party conflict, if I can call it that. And still on that story, so the government imposes 24 hours curfew, and business owners, they closed the shops, walked away in the NNPP to appeal, and APC applauds the verdict. Have you noticed this is what happens? If APC, for instance, wins in this state, they applaud. If they lose in this state, they ask for and they say, there's something wrong with it. The same thing happens to all the parties. So I think we should just begin to get in terms with however
and again
the system.
It's a normal thing. It's one might look at it and be like APC is the ruling government, that's why possibly it is winning. In other states they are
also losing. Yeah.
So it's the same situation, I would say, where you have some win, some lose. So you just have to follow the right channel to appeal and all that.
Yeah, exactly. That's very important, to follow the right channel and not take the law into your hands. All right, moving on to the Guardian newspaper and stories making the headlines. No passage of bill 15 years after it threatens $77 billion telecom industry. That's huge. And these are just bills that we need to pass. What is stalling those bills? Still on the Guardian newspaper, this is the issue of the coups. Why military incursion is not solution to leadership deficits. It's glad that we acknowledge that there is a leadership deficit, but yet, yes, it's also nice to say that the coups is not the solution. Okay, let's take another story there. Ondo Assembly begins impeachment proceedings against the deputy governor. All right, that's all we have on the Guardian newspaper for Thursday. Let me take us to Tribune. Major stories, same story. Curfew in Kano as tribunal sacks governor. And Ondo lawmakers begin impeachment process again against the deputy governor. And the story making, the window story here says over 5.2 trillion naira accrued to Federation account in 6 months. Is the government making money or not? All right, let's move on to this day newspaper. Major story: Naira weakens to 99 naira to a dollar on parallel market as dollar demand overwhelms supply.
So the thing is, in as much as the price increased, it's not even about the price increasing, it's about the availability.
Oh yes.
So there is the high demand, there is scarcity also.
You know, the acting CBN governor, as Foloshodu, if I got his name right, made that he was saying that something like this, people are hoarding the dollar, and it is part of the reason. And this is the reason why people are hoarding, because they know that it is going to increase, so they want to hoard it and keep it. Because I know a lot of people now are no longer saving, even for short-term savings. They are not saving in the naira any longer. You're saving in the dollar for things like Christmas. Imagine you'd have to exchange your dollar Christmas for 1,002, 1,150. If I can make that projection from what we have now, or Philip, let's not get to 2,000 by December, please. That's going to be horrible.
I've said it before.
Let's not get to 2,000 by December.
I'm looking at 1,005 upwards.
So you can imagine that you buy dollar now and you're keeping dollars, only to wait till December to change it. so that of course you can enjoy the festive seasons, and you have to get, so it's possible that that is part of what is causing these issues right now. And so the window story still on this day. We're going to say something.
No.
All right, Dangote, so NNPC ready to supply our refinery with crude oil in few weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, no, earlier they couldn't meet the, I think the refinery is demanding 600,000 barrels a day, and the NNPC were saying they promised they could meet up, and later said they couldn't meet up. It's part of the reasons why the Dangote refinery has stalled. We thank God that the NNPC has said they can meet up. They say they debunk the alleged denial of feedstock by Kerry-led state oil firm. The Lord's NNPC's management for being supportive partners of the Dangote refinery. Yes, we hope for a speedy coming on board of the Dangote refinery to help us alleviate our short supply of petrol. And now the last newspaper for that day is the New Telegraph. Major story: U.S. court orders varsity to release Tinubu's academic records. This is to, I said, run away from all forms of corruption, temptation. Oh, okay. No, so this is for the election petition tribunal ongoing case. I think the ex-vice president Atiku has gotten the permission, or rather the school has been asked to release the president's results. Say how fake this stress call ended security operatives' lives. The Rivers police arrest 3 cultists who see slain DPO's corpse, and the lawmaker urges federal government to stop killing of farmers. That's some bit of a strong allegation there. Yeah, say Nigeria secures 19.4 billion commitment from UNGA. President seems to be gathering a lot of investment for Nigeria. Let's hope this don't just end in promises or just end in promises. Let's hope they actually make those investments. That's all for Thursday. Over to you, Phillips, for Friday headlines.
All right, looking at stories from a newspaper, National Dailies. That's for Friday, September 22nd. And the top story for starting with The Guardian. The top story there says paradox of plenty. Nigeria loses 1 trillion naira yearly importing active pharmaceutical ingredients. That's one amount there. And Dangote modular refineries abandon petrol refining over return of subsidy. Also, Tinubu files motion to stop Chicago Varsity from releasing academic records to Atiku. I don't understand that factor. Whether
how that just came in.
Like, is he afraid of?
But they've said they have nothing to hide.
Yes, and that's what if this is my opinion. If I'm done, you understand, and I've gotten my certificate, I don't care whether you see that course I got F, that course I got A, or whether
you think that's the problem.
I'm trying to look at it from that angle. You understand? Yeah. If not, I don't see any reason why you'd be like, no, don't give him a anyway.
Into this particular case of results or no results, like people have come, lawyers have come, constitutionally we don't need those things to qualify. If you don't, if you sell us your manifesto and you sell us your credibility, Nigerians will vote for you. Yes. But the moment you've put those things in, they should be valid. If you've not, we have a lot of the minimum requirement is is it first school living certificate now or your GSC? Not sure which it is. First for president.
For president, you don't I think if you know how to call Nigeria, that's all.
I know where you're heading to live in, but you see, you don't need all of that. But the moment that you have put it in, that you have these credentials, they have to be valid. If not, can be held against you.
Yes, that's the problem. So if only you can start without pointing those things out.
Sell yourself, sell the plans you have for Nigeria,
and that's
sell
all.
your credibility. That's all.
Yes. So, MPC meeting postponed as CBN faces leadership vacuum. That is still from the Guardian for Friday. And the Ogun lawmakers, 6 others nabbed over Shagamu cult clash. Dispute Tinubu's assurance US issues travel advisory to citizens. More of that from the Guardian newspaper for Friday. Moving forward, the Punch. Still for Friday, federal government pay rather 1.68 trillion naira fuel subsidy, and marketers forecast 900 naira per liter. You can get more of that story from the Punch newspaper. And academic record delay Atiku's request, Tinubu tells US court. Currency in circulation rises to 2.7 trillion naira. That's according to CBN's report. For the Mohbad story, pathologists conclude autopsy in Mohbad's corpse. Police awaits results. I remain loyal. Forgive me. Shaibu begs for Basiki.
Wow.
Yes. That's the deputy governor that was locked out of his office. And cult clashes relocate to Shagamu. Abiodun tells security heads. And consumers allege sabotage as grid collapses worsen outage. That is for the Punch newspaper for Friday. And moving forward, we'll be looking at the Vanguard. The Vanguard newspaper, still for Friday, 22nd day of September 2023. We have fresh strike looms as NLC ultimatum expires today. NLC leaders meet next week, and as federal government gets desperate to avert action.
Sorry, the NLC will be meeting next week. But the ultimatum was decided today.
Yes.
So they didn't have any plans in the work for what to implement immediately, or the ultimatum is over. All right.
That's the labor demon there. Now, Shuaibu apologizes to Obaseki over feud and seeks forgiveness. And also, non-development OB, BUA, Julius Berger, Agabi, others lose Abuja lands as Wike revokes 167 plots.
He warned everybody. Nobody was going to be
master
out of
planner
his
there.
way. Yeah.
Tinubu to UN, I fought for democracy and determined to prove it can provide development. And still on the Vanguard, again gunmen murder ASP inspector in Enugu police patrol ambush. The poor economy insecurity worrisome. That's according to Muslim leaders there. Remember, you can get more of those stories from the Vanguard newspaper for today. Up next, we'll be looking at the These Day newspaper, still for Friday, 22nd of September 2023. And following Tinubu's appeal, judge adjourns CSU records case to Monday. And temporarily stays execution of early order after president plea it will cause severe and irreparable harm to him. Tinubu departs to New York en route Paris to Abuja. Well, that and more from the These Day newspaper. Naira falls further to 995 naira per dollar in parallel market. Edun blames $6.8 billion backlog for currency woes. We get more of that story from the These Day. Also, Tinubu to Guterres. I am ready to take tough decisions even if they make me unpopular. That's a way to put it. Away from the These Day to New Telegraph, where we have Tinubu to Guterres, the world will ignore Nigeria at its own peril. Impressive words.
Yep.
Naira plunges to record 998 Naira per dollar at parallel market. And also at 600 Naira pump price, federal government has returned to fuel subsidy. Budget CEO. And also on Telegraph, New Telegraph, amend Constitution, retiring Supreme Court Justice, argue tells NAS. And the tribunal affirms Mbaz election, dismisses NYSC forgery petition. You find that story and more from the New Telegraph for Friday. Finally, Daily Trust. Naira crosses 1,000 Naira per dollar in black market. And the cost of living will increase according to experts. And the money laundering others fueling pressure. We have pictures of deserted Kano, I would say streets of Kano, on the Daily Trust. Kano leaves curfew, residents lament hardship. That story also from the Daily Trust. IPI 6 probe as corpse of Zamfara journalist found in Sockaway.
So just sad story.
Seriously. Tinubu to UN, take more action on poverty, terrorism than talking. We must push through the storm. Sacked Governor Yusuf tells appointees. Okay. Well, that is so far from the newspaper headlines that we have for now. Remember, you can just drop by any vendor place to get a copy and get more of those stories there. Well, this is still the New Dawn, of course, coming to you from studios of Viewer Television. Now, as we said earlier, we'll be having an interview with a former House of Representative, of course, an APC member, to look at the state of the nation. Of course, looking at the subsidy removal, security, and of course, climate change. We'll be having Abdrazak Namdas, Honorable Abdrazak Namdas, coming up next after the day's break. Don't go anywhere.
Thanks again for staying with us. You're still watching New Dawn Nigeria on Viewer Television. And now there's a lot that is happening in the polity of the nation. And here to deliberate with us on state of the matter issues is Honorable Namdas Abdulrazak, a member of the APC's the All Progressives Congress ruling party. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. First off, like, we'll always want to ask your government is the ruling party. We're still new. We're looking at barely 3 or 4 months. In your own assessment, how would you mark your government so far?
Thank you so much for the opportunity for me to say 1 or 2 things. I want to say that it is too early in the day for me to be very certain that this is the level at which we are. But I can say that we started on a good note because when we took over government from the previous one, it also had a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
And particularly when the new government came in, it started to remove oil subsidy, which has been hampering the growth and the development of the economy. However, after the removal of the economy, there were a lot of also challenges. People were really very upset with the removal of the subsidy. But the truth is that any economic policy you come out with, a lot of people will expect to have real changes within the next 24 hours. And I think some policies are long-term in nature before it yield fruits. Others are short-term in nature. So issues like fuel subsidy is a long-term policy. Of course, there will be challenges as we move with it. But I can tell you that we have come up with policies that we believe that after a while, we stand a chance to benefit from it. And that is why the government itself recognizes the fact that there are a lot of pains also within the economy. And that is why it came out with issues of palliatives, invited state governors, invited it's the federal government itself to see how we can cushion the effect. If the government did not notice that there are pains, these things may not come forward. And that's again why when the NLC came up with issues of strike, we as Democrats have nothing but to talk to them and see the reason why they should understand that these are the things, and we accept the pain they are going through. But we are also new. Nigeria is a big country. It has over 200 and something million people, and we have a lot of resources that are on tap, and others are already tapped. But we will need some time to mature in it. So that's my view.
Okay. So we'll come to the talk of the palliatives, because that's an issue that we Nigerians are really very confused about. But you've mentioned about subsidy, which is something that is beginning to make the rounds again this week on the news. Nigerians are seeking for transparency when it comes to the issue of subsidy. Now, a little bit of journalistic investigation shows that the government last year, we don't know how true that is, has paid subsidies worth 600 thereabout million to oil marketers, and is expected to pay about 1.6 or so trillion this month, so that the fuel prices can remain at 620, because there's been confusions about why we are still paying 600 and something as against what we know our exchange rate is. So how can we get clarity on this? Is there subsidy? Is there no subsidy?
No, I think let's be clear. Even when we took over government, it is a known fact that there was no budget for subsidy even by the June of by June. So, and that was why the government said, look, we have come in, subsidy is gone, because there is nothing in it. So if government was interested in the subsidy, we will have talked about paying of the subsidy, and that was why it was not available in the budget, and therefore we have removed subsidy, or else it has to also be included in the budget again for it to be paid. You understand? But you see, I want people to appreciate the fact that the challenge of the subsidy has always been that some people benefit from the subsidy, and those who benefit from the subsidy are the elites or the people, the bourgeois, people who have the opportunity to be at the top. And that is the reason why this government said, look, we have made our investigations, we keep paying subsidy, but this does not get down to the people. And I give you an example also. All our borders are porous. I come from Northeast. I come from an area, I once represented 4 local governments in the National Assembly up to the 9th Assembly. And there's a local government called Tongo within my place. It's a very porous border. Any young man that grow up in that place, he has one part of his business is smuggling of petroleum to neighboring Cameroon Republic. Because from Tongo to Cameroon is a stone's throw. And therefore you go to Mubi from my state. Mubi is also from Mubi to Cameroon is a stone's throw. So, and it happens, I'm just giving an example of Adamawa. It replicates in other parts of this country that have borders with Niger, have borders with Benin Republic, have borders with Chad. So these are the challenges we have. People will take subsidy. Instead of taking it to the market and sell it to the citizens, they will, after getting subsidies from government, they will still take the product out of the country. That means they are making profit double.
Yeah.
You understand the point? So what is the essence of having it? So now by the time you remove the subsidy, it means literally agreed that the price will increase here. So if the price increase here, you can't take it to a neighboring country because you can also increase on
There.
because you having almost the same price if your own is not even higher. So these are the challenges. So I think the intention was not meant to cripple the economy or to suffocate anybody, but it had a good intention. But because I need to let you know that Nigeria does not refine its own crude product.
Yeah.
So once you don't refine your crude product, you must also have some challenges as far as your policy is concerned, because it's refined. People take the crude oil and refine it out of the country and then bring it back and set prices. So assuming we are the ones that are refining it ourselves, but I think government is also vis-a-vis removing the subsidy. They are working on the refining or possibility of making it. That was why I say it could be a long-term policy. By the time the refineries are okay, since we're the one going to refine it in Nigeria, then the prices will come down. But I think these are the challenges.
Now, you agreed, you made mention of the fact that it's a long-term plan and it's a good plan if you ask me, but regardless, let's look at the other aspect of this whole situation where some people are finding it hard to survive. Don't you think, agreed that there are palliative policies being made, don't you think by the time this palliative or these measures will have reached the common man, it might have been too late? Because it's how many months now and there are no or zero, I would say, interventions from the government when it comes to common, I would say, Nigerian.
Well, let me say, there's no policy of government in the world that is man-made that will succeed 100%. We are human beings. Any policy you come up with, there are people who are sitting by the right side or the left side of the corner to pick holes on what you are doing. And that is why even when I used to be a lawmaker, we used to say that we amend laws. Because anytime you come up with something and it has a challenge, even if it is a law, you have the right to repeal the law or you amend the law, meaning very well that this is not the Quran and it's not Bible. These are the two books that you cannot amend because it is dogmatic, it comes from God. But once it comes from human being, you have a subject. So that's why I'm saying that we may not be perfect. Whatever thing you come out with, if you are a leader, as you practice that policy, and if there are challenges, you also have to be flexible. You don't have to be also dogmatic with it. And wherever you have issues, you try to. But I can tell you that palliatives are going round. If we say people are not getting palliatives, I would say it is not a fair assessment. But if you say there are people who are also corruptly benefiting from it, I will say yes, because this is Nigeria. I have seen pictures, videos of where state governors on their own are even sharing the palliatives. So when people say we don't get palliative, it's not a correct assessment. But if you say, okay, that some of these palliatives are being diverted, it could be true. You understand? But again, in my view, is that it is happening, but government herself has got to reports from what we have read. I don't speak for government, but we have had reports that government have been reported, or citizens have been reported, that look, we are not even getting it the way it is being said, or we are getting very small. We have instances where if you see some of the products that are given to individuals as palliatives, it's really very ridiculous. You will be angry when you see it. But we have also seen instances where the palliatives are it's okay. So I think in essence, let us just say that we will improve as the things continue to move on.
Yes, I hope that happens. But aside the case of implementing such policy where palliatives will be given out, has the government implemented any way where this will be transparent, or those who are given such things will be held accountable? Is there?
You see, I think you need to understand that government came out clearly and said, look, we are giving each state government 5 billion. The federal government is not responsible for the entire thing. So I think the criticism should go down up to local government, because you cannot, as a government, you also, for you to succeed, you need to also put some people together, regardless of whether they are in your party or you are not in the party. Because when you assume office as the president of Nigeria, everybody in Nigeria is subject to your leadership. So that was in recognition of that. Government say, okay, we are giving the 36 states, including the FCT, 5 billion. So if you are from state A, go to your state. The state governor has his own policy and way of implementing palliatives. It's not going to be the same with your own.
Yeah.
So every state governor has its own way of coming out with the palliatives. So you can see this blame is not going to be said, okay, it's the federal government that went to Kwara to implement how palliatives is being shared. No, it is the state government. But that is why some people are also saying, look, it should have gone to the state government. But the truth of the matter is that whoever you have given responsibility, some other people will have said, oh no, this guy too, we cannot trust them. But you do a program, look at it, assess it, and see whether it is working. And tomorrow, when the opportunity presents itself, no, I cannot work with this group because last time I gave them this opportunity and they didn't do well. Nigerians complain. No, let's try this. But for now, we can give them benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so sorry, we can, before we leave this palliative matter, because we can actually dwell on it a lot. There's a lot to ask for. Yes, you've mentioned and we're aware of the 5 billion naira that was allocated to all the states, right, to disburse palliatives to. We've seen people like Governor Zulum distributing palliatives. We've seen people say they're giving out loans. But the question was asked, I think, by the Edo State government. Still on the matter of transparency, we are happy that palliatives are beginning to get down to the Nigerians that need this, but we're also asking these palliatives, where these monies, was it part of the supplementary budget? Where did it come from? Because there was also a clause that stated that the state government will have to be paying a part of that. So people want to know, because let's know what is coming back to bite us or not. No, where was that allocation from?
If you recall that the federal government went to National Assembly and sought approval
for the 800 billion.
They sought approval for it. It's a common knowledge that they sought approval for it. And that, look, if you as a government, whether at the state or at the local government level, you also have the responsibility of taking care of your people.
Yeah.
It's not just about federal government that, look, it is federal government that, no. You should understand that even in laws, there are laws that are state laws, there are laws that are federal government laws. So, government said, okay, let's partner together. If you have a challenge in your state, let me also give you a loan from that money. However, this percentage you can do, this percentage should come back to us. I think, in my opinion, it's a fair deal. There's no state government in this country that does not have challenge of finances. Even if today you say, okay, let us have 5 billion, they will collect.
Yeah.
You understand the point? They will collect. But what I'm saying is that after you collect loan from government, whether from banks, if you take 5 million naira as loan from your bank, the bank will not follow you to your house and say, okay, how are you going to spend it? This is not IMF now. They will not tell you how it is being spent.
Yeah.
It's left to you to spend it. But if I'm your guarantor, you took 5 million naira to invest in business and I'm your guarantor, and I had the following day that you got married, I'm going to take back my, I will resist that, because that is a venture that cannot yield back profit for you to pay. Because that is a venture that if you get married, that I am not sure the money will come back. So as guarantor, I will run away from you. I will go back to the bank and say, no, I'm no longer a guarantor of this person. But that's what I'm saying. So if state governments are giving money to whether as loan or as anything, it is left to them to come up with a blueprint, because their citizens are aware. It's not as if they are not aware. All the Nigerian citizens are aware. In my state, I know that my governor has been given 5 billion naira. So it is also left to us, me, and the people in my state, to be very watchful, see what my state governor is going to do with 5 billion. Not federal government this time around. Of course, we need to see, when you put your governments to scrutiny, they will do the needful. I think that is the way it should be done.
Yeah, that's very important. All right, let's moving away from the subsidy and the palliative matter. Let's talk security issues now and try to link it with investment. The president has been, even in his UN's address, he made mention of how Nigeria is ready for business. Even state governors have been making moves to get foreign investment and all. And we know that primarily the state of security or insecurity in this instance in your country or whichever climes is what moves investment, because investors are not ready to take that risk for their infrastructure and everything. They don't take that risk. But the president has been going around and asking for investment, foreign investors, right from when he went to Paris and all. Don't you think we should begin to focus on our internal security and economic issues? Because I feel like if that is handled, we don't even need to ask people for investment. They will always come. Let's look at things that are happening in Rwanda and the rest. People will naturally just come. What's your take on that?
Yes, I think it is very obvious that once there is a state of insecurity, you don't expect a development. That is a natural thing.
Yeah.
But I want you to understand that insecurity is not isolated to Nigeria alone.
Of course.
Today, in those days, after the First World War, the kind of conflicts that we begin to experience all over the world is either civil war or internal conflicts. It was in those days that countries fought countries. So Nigeria will fight Cameroon, for example, or Nigeria is going to fight Chad, for example. It was a country. That was why when the armed forces were created, their idea, their main job was to protect the territorial integrity of the country. Because expectedly, we expect that it is another nation that is going to fight our nation. And that is the main job of the Nigerian armed forces, even up to today constitutionally. But it is only police that has the duty to take care of the internal security. I hope you understand.
Yes.
So this issue of crisis across internal securities across is now all over. And that's why governments these days, you will not sit down and say, okay, how do I handle the issue of Boko Haram in Nigeria as a government in isolation? You won't succeed. And that's why there is bilateral relationship between you and other countries around the corner. And that's why Nigeria has what is called joint task forces, so that you see how we can relate with Benin Republic, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. Because Nigeria borders, these are countries that we borders Nigeria, Cameroon in the east, and then you have Niger and Chad in the north. So these are, you have to, once you agree with them, you work together. But I think my challenge is that it is not as if it is this government that has met insecurity. We have lived with Boko Haram since 2009.
Yeah.
So that means that we will continue to work. If care is not taken, it's likelihood it is one handled well, you are likely to give it to the next government. But I think government is doing its best to see that new service chiefs will have been appointed, and I have had issues that they say, okay, we are going to work together. I was one time chairman House Committee on Army, so I know that the security chiefs have been doing their best. But I think the major problem also is with we Nigerians, because there is nowhere in the world, I'm a PhD student of security, and I know there's nowhere in the world that kinetic efforts, that means you use the gun to settle security challenges or to end insurgency in the world. That's no way. The guns, these are your citizens. Expectedly, you use the gun, but you use non-kinetic means. What do I say? These are the issues, the economic activities, revitalize the economy, see how you can improve the welfare of the people, both at the civil level, at civil servants level, at whatever level. So that once people are, young boys are employed naturally, this idea of recruiting them to join Boko Haram or recruiting them to do other activities will not be there. So I think, but the problem with Nigeria, as I said, I was one time chairman of army, anywhere there is security challenge, most Nigerians will ask me or ask people close to the armed forces that let the army come and settle these challenges. We should begin to agree that the internal crisis should, inter-security challenges should be the work of police. And in the National Assembly, I keep asking government that during budgeting, we should also train so much, give the police enough resources, sophisticated training, so that they can handle, because Nigerians seem to have more confidence in the armed forces than in the police. Okay, let's change the narrative. If you give them, when I was growing as a young man, I know that the mobile police is, if you see them, they can do better than some army officers in some cases.
Yes.
But they are well trained. But unfortunately, they are not trained now. So let us give them more training, and this is what I think in recognition. I had the National Security Advisor was saying, look, we are going to allow the police to do their job. Well, expectedly that when the National Assembly is back, the federal government will send in their budget, and we will expect that there was so much for the police to handle. All
right, so we should take it now that the government is on the right trajectory to settling internal issues. Okay, you have anything on that anymore?
Yes, regarding the military issue, and I just want to relate that to what's happening with in a bigger structure, talking about Niger, ECOWAS and all that. Don't you think rather than we sending in the last resort, rather than we sending in, let's say, army or our own army to take over, don't you think we should focus more on making sure that our security is checked upon here in Nigeria?
I think this is why people are getting it wrong. You see, I told you earlier, you can't run government in isolation. The world is a global village. That for you to succeed these days, you need the cooperation of another person. So if somebody is in trouble, I will say, I'm not going to help him. This is his problem. I am safe. You are alone. Don't lead yourself. I hope you get the point. Once your neighbor is in crisis, it is your duty to check, even not as a country, even as an individual. How someone say that if you see the beer of your neighbor is on fire, put water on your own. So the point is that once you know that your neighboring country has a challenge and you have an opportunity to assist, do assist. And people have forgotten easily that the president is the chairman of head of ECOWAS, head of state. He's the chairman. There's no way he cannot say something in what's happening in Niger Republic. Of course, the final attitude of going to Niger, myself, I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I don't like it because if you are familiar with the politics or the people of the Northwest, about a lot of them, 40% of the Nigerians live around have relations in Niger and in Nigeria. You'll be fighting Nigerians in Niger. Yes. I hope you understand the point. And the businesses they do together, once you close the border, it also affects Nigeria. Yes. So I agree, but sometimes when the father talks to his son, he says, look, I am going to deal with you if you do this. He may not do it necessarily. It's a warning. So if the president says, look, we are going to invade, it's possibly he is just sending words to make them fear. This may not come eventually, and that's why they keep saying it should be the last resort.
Talking on the coups again, like looking at the people of Niger now deeply, the people seem to be, despite all the hardship that the sanctions have brought on them, they seem to still be comfortable with the coups, with the military takeover. And I'm just asking, on behalf of the ECOWAS, are we looking at the plight of these people right now? I know that this was an unconstitutional takeover, and of course we should not marry the case and all, but are we taking another step by to look at the plight of these people and see how that can also be looked into and see what has led them to being comfortable and accepting a coup?
I don't know whether you have ever heard this cliche that people say the best form of military government, the worst form of civilian government is better than military government. I don't know whether you have heard that.
Yeah.
If you understand that, then this question is answered. Reason being that I cannot sit there to give credibility to a military regime.
No, of course.
I can't sit down. The truth is that if Nigerians are comfortable with the military takeover, this is Nigeria. We as the president of Nigeria, being chairman of head of government of ECOWAS, he cannot come on air and say, look, I am happy with what happened over there. He also have military people in this country. So by the time they take over, people will say, you said it before now, so what's the problem? So our point is that the truth is that military are not supposed to get themselves in governance. They may do better than some civilians in some instances, but these are isolated cases that we must not legitimize on the people. But as you said, that we have also a limit to what we can do in Niger, whether no matter how far we can relate with them, there are certain internal affairs of Nigerians that we cannot afford to do. Sometimes the only thing you can do is sanctions. Like the Nigerian government say, okay, they used to enjoy light from us. We have turned it off. You understand? You put pressure on them so that they can ease themselves out. And if we don't do that, they could stay there for a very long period. So even the mere fact that ECOWAS is putting pressure on Nigeria, part of it is okay. Even if they are going to come up with a transition program, they will not come with a transition program that will look like as if they are an elected government. You understand my point?
Yeah.
So I think they have their challenges and what have you, but I think they should do on time and leave the scene.
All right, as we begin to wind down, because we're running out of time now. The president early hours of Wednesday in New York addressed the United Nations in a very remarkable speech. Nigerians were so happy for that speech. We don't have time to go through all of that, but one that we know that affects even the citizens right now, still bordering a little bit on security, was he made mention of climate change, right? And we know the effects of climate change globally right now. And he stated there that the floods we're seeing in Nigeria and in Africa climate change is to be blamed for that. And like we've been saying, we have little contribution to, the climate change and all of that. Our emissions are very little. But we here, we don't think or agree that climate change is what's responsible for the floods here. I don't know if you agree to that. And then also, what are we doing to see that the floods, and because lives and properties and all this will end up affecting our economy, what are we doing to see that we begin to check this issue of flood, because it's beginning to be consistent every year?
You see, when people say it is a climate change, it is truly a climate change. The point is that, when people, like for example, when you stay in Gwarimpa and you see flood moves around, you say, this is natural rain now. It's not, the government should be held responsible for that. It is not, but you will understand that there are some tributaries of water that once there is an overflow, excesses, it passes through. Sometimes we have the Lagdo Dam here in, I think in Cameroon here. So sometimes if they release that one, it affects us in Nigeria. The flooding, that's why they will warn in advance. You understand? Sometimes they may not even be the ones to have released it, but the excess water in that dam can also affect us here. You understand the point? I agree in totality. Climate change is contributing. But I also agree that there is also negligence on the part of government. This government, when I say government, it's not restricted to federal government. It could be state government. It could be local government. You understand the point? Because the problem in Nigeria, people do not separate everything they heap in on one person. They forget that this is a federal government that has different types of government, state, federal, and local government. You don't expect President Tinubu to go to my local government and just talk about floods there. We have leadership in that place. But people don't understand that. But I think I agree that this climate change is not just about Nigeria. It's worldwide. It's worldwide. So it has its challenges. It has its contribution. But I also agree that there are misplaced priorities by some government officials when it comes to taking care of floods. Because Nigeria has an attitude. When you have a problem, let's say during rainy season, and there are floods everywhere, if the rainy season ends and
you forget about it,
they will not even talk about it. And these are the challenges. So I agree with you. Like when it comes to security, I always tell people when I was chairman of army, say, look, you don't buy equipment to fight insurgents just because they are disturbing you. By the time you are able to solve the problem, you don't go back to sleep. You are supposed to fund the armed forces, the police, whichever, even when you are in peace, because you don't know when the crisis will come. But here, sometimes we wait until when the crisis erupts. They say that there is attack here. You begin to look for
arms and everything,
and begin to assemble them. Once it is solved, they go back to sleep. This is not a Nigerian issue. It's an African attitude that problems are solved at ad hoc levels. Somebody will rush, the government will put committees. Once it is resolved, they will go back to sleep, not knowing that this thing can germinate and come back to life. So even if we have Boko Haram that we've been fighting for this number of years, but the day we are able to resolve the Boko Haram issue, you continue to pile arms so that next time you don't know when it will come. So I think it's attitude, and I agree with you. That could be a challenge of individual government for not taking things serious, but there is also the climate change.
Okay, but you mentioned something about we putting all the blame and everything on one, which is the federal government in this case, when we have the state government and local government. Let me just ask you briefly, is the onus or is the responsibility on Nigerian citizens to hold the state and the local government accountable to facing their responsibilities?
No.
Is it on we?
No, it is every has its own. For example, I tell you here that as a member of National Assembly in those times, the National Assembly today cannot legislate on state government. So why should you hold the federal government responsible for what is happening in somebody's state?
So should the citizens begin to hold them responsible?
Yes, they are. That is the reality. There are things that happens in your state that is federal government owned. There are, for example, there are federal government roads. You understand the point? There are state government roads. You understand the point? But the point still remains is that Nigerians just want to have their roads because to be fair to also them,
Yeah.
is because we have high level of illiteracy. Once you apply on the road, whether it's federal or state, that is not his problem. So long as this road is not tarred, it is a federal government blame. And also the state government also has the same share of problem. If it's a federal government road and it's in somebody's state, the indigene in that state will just be blaming the governor, not the federal government. It could be the other way. But I think it is important for us to know that certain laws, the houses of assembly can only legislate on the states. The National Assembly can only legislate on federal government. There are only sometimes some issues that we can come together on concurrently. For example, if we are doing, let's say, creation of state, or you want to do, let's say, some amendment of the constitution, you will need, there are certain clauses that you need the input of 24 states out of the 36. You understand the point? In that case, it must have a federal outlook.
Yeah.
You understand my point? When we wanted to do the local government financial autonomy, we granted that at the federal level, but you don't have that. You need the cooperation of 24 states out of the 36 for it to pass. So once we couldn't get it, so it couldn't pass.
All right, so before we let you do, this has been a very insightful conversation. We can go on and on, but we don't have the luxury of time. Yeah. We know where as Nigerians, we always put our government, we always tell them what we want, what they want. We believe that having a thriving government and a thriving nation is a responsibility of the federal government and the citizens. Before you go final words, what are your expectations of the citizens in collaboration with the government so that we can move the nation forward?
My thing is that I am pleading with Nigerians that I agree quite on that we have challenges. I do have, a lot of people do have. I plead with Nigerians to show understanding with the regime that we have at the moment. It is a young government that has just been in office for just about 3 to 4 months now, going to 4 months now. So we expect wonders to happen. Please give us some opportunity to see. There are certain policies that takes time to germinate, and we are conscious of that. So this government, you can see right now, wherever the president goes, he tries to discuss with other partners, business ventures, to see how they can come and invest. Nobody will be president of Nigeria to cause pains on its people. But because the challenges have been too enormous, it will take us time to heal. And I appreciate that. And Nigerians should also agree. Pray that subject your government to scrutiny, be it at state, at local, or at federal level. Because together, we join hands together to move. It is the same thing like, say, we have the legislature, the judiciary, and also the executive. There are certain things, although all of them, in the case of federal, all these things are federal government. You understand the point? Whether you are in the executive, all these are federal government, at the state level, it's the same. But again, you will need the cooperation of one other for us to succeed. So I pray with Nigerians to show understanding. I believe this government is going to do the right thing, and we will appreciate that in the long time.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Namdas, for coming on to talk to us and talk to Nigerians. Nigerians, you've heard, hold your government accountable and collaborate with the government. You're still watching New Dawn Nigeria. Let's go on this quick break and we'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us still on New Dawn Nigeria. That was Honorable Namdas Abdul Razak. That was such an insightful piece and question answering time we had from him. And like he gave us his closing remarks, find ways to hold the government accountable any way that you can in every form. We have the 3 tiers of government, we have the 3 arms of government. Whichever government is closest to you, find ways to hold them accountable to good governance. Let's do our part in moving the nation forward. From me, Chinonso Pam, it's have a lovely and a wonderful weekend.
And of course, my name is Phillips Levin. From my angle, I'll urge you, please, as usual, when you see something, do say something. And as the Honorable said, you ought to do your part also by being inclusive in what is happening from, of course, the government. Try as much as possible. Look through what they are going through. If there are any cases, of course, put it forward, and so that you will be governed well. Well, this is how far we can go. Remember, this is, of course, weekly, so fresh episode will be coming your way next week, same time, same station. So for now, enjoy the rest of our program.